your scarf.
What the fuck? Hey! What's going on here?
Well, that's just silly. Silly, yes. Idiotic, yes.
By the time you're clicking on this video, you've probably heard about how bad The Marvels is as a movie. Fails on so many levels of storytelling, but I can tell you that one of the worst parts about this film is the fight scenes. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down some of the fight scenes from The Marvels movie. There are 4 major fight scenes. So because there are 4 major fight scenes, I'm going to be using 4 movies to do a comparison with The Marvels. Those 4 movies are Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, the original Black Panther, the first Black Panther film, and Captain America Winter Soldier. Those 4 movies have great fight scenes, so I'm going to use them to compare with The Marvels and show you why The Marvels movie has very bad fight scenes. What makes a fight scene good and what makes a fight scene bad. The first issue with The Marvels fight scenes is a lack of human injury. A lack of human injury. There was a time in the MCU when the hero went up against the villain, and by the time he is in the fight or he's coming out of the fight, he has sustained injury that you can actually see.
Wakanda forever.
A very good example of this is when Thanos goes up against the big 3, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. You can see Thor getting pummeled in the face to the point that he bleeds. I believe even Captain America takes damage and he ends up like limping on the battlefield or something. There was a time when heroes would fight villains and they would come out looking all bruised and bloody. There's even in Avengers Infinity War. You see Wanda, who is typically a very powerful Avenger. She was an Avenger back then before she went evil, that is. And you see her getting thrown through a window, a glass roof or something, and you actually see her bleeding, or she has blood stains, or you can see that she has taken injury. But now here comes The Marvels, a movie where people fight and nobody even comes out with a single scratch. For example, there's this one scene where you see Monica Rambeau fighting with Dar-Ben, the villain, and Dar-Ben hits her with this remarkably big blast. That blast is so big that it affects Nick Fury's space station, and it makes the space station go offline. And yet, when Monica Rambeau gets hit with this huge blast, what happens to her? She falls all the way from the sky and hits the ground and then just walks it off. Nothing happens to her, not even a scratch, not even a bruised anything, not even a broken bone on this girl. I don't remember her having regenerative powers, so I don't understand how you fell so high like that, and when you smacked on the ground, nothing happened to you. Just came as a shock to me. Another example is when Dar-Ben is trying to get the bangle from Miss Marvel. She puts Miss Marvel on the ground using her hammer. And I'm telling you, this is the same hammer in the intro that they showed us can break a stone like an egg. You know, it broke this obelisk type thing, this black obelisk type thing like an egg. And you're telling me that when it's on Miss Marvel's face, it doesn't even give her a bruise, not even so much as a broken bone or any sort of fracturing on the face. I hate the fact that in the Marvels movie, people just fight and nobody comes out even with a single scratch. I think the only time I saw someone get injured was Dar-Ben, but the heroes always walk out unscathed. Number 2 has to be an over-reliance on superpowers. What makes the fight scenes so boring and predictable is the over-reliance on superpowers. And before you go and say, well, a lot of superheroes in the MCU rely on their superpowers, well, the thing is not just relying on superpowers, it's also, does the superhero bring anything else other than superpowers to the table? I mean, put Captain Marvel aside. Captain Marvel actually can fight with her fists a bit, but put her aside, Captain Rambeau and Miss Marvel. Without their powers, can these girls really bring anything else? Do they bring any wit, creativity, tactics? Do they bring anything else? This is why someone like Black Widow is actually very good in a fight scene, because she doesn't need powers and she can still take down very many people. It's also the reason why someone like Iron Man, yes, Iron Man has no powers, he needs the suit, but even without the suit, he can still take on people. Even Okoye, for example. I really like Okoye in the Black Panther film. There's this one scene where she's fighting with a bunch of guys in a club, and she has no powers, but because she just has a spear, fighting techniques, and strategy, she's very good at taking down the guys with just fighting styles. There's even a part where she grabs her wig and then she throws it at one of the guys. Creative fighting styles that don't necessarily rely so much on superpowers. When you have a hero who relies so much on their superpowers, the fight scenes become boring and predictable. Captain Marvel in the Marvels, there's a part where she actually tries fighting some guys with fist to fist, but in the end she just ends up pew pew, pew pew. In the end it just boils down to pew pew all the time. It makes the fight scenes very boring and very, very predictable, very generic. Number 3 has to do with gimmick versus teamwork. The problem with this film, The Marvels, is that they introduced this gimmick where when heroes use their powers, they switch. This gimmick was a very bad plot device because it didn't really add anything to the film, didn't add anything to the movie, and the fact that these guys could have actually teamed up properly and they could have actually worked as a team properly. For example, if you want to see good teamwork, you can watch Avengers Infinity War, when, as I said, Wanda gets attacked by the Black Order, and then Captain America and Falcon and Scarlett Johansson's character, they jump in to try and save her. The teamwork there was magnificent. It was this guy does this guy does that, this guy comes in and does this guy comes in and takes this other guy. Perfect teamwork. But now in the Marvels, because they've introduced this gimmick of switching every 5 seconds, it never allows for proper teamwork. In fact, there's this one scene where Darben is about to fight Miss Marvel, and then she sees Miss Marvel has the bangle on her, and then Captain Rambo says, Miss Marvel, run. Then when she's running away, Captain Marvel says, tag me in, and then she pops in. The problem with this scene is that it's gimmicky. You know why it's gimmicky? Because Captain Marvel can fly. So what was the point? Like, she could have just flown there. She didn't have to switch places with her. You get my point? It's gimmicky. There was no need for the switching. The switching comes off as a gimmick just to try and make the plot better, but it's a very useless plot device. Number 4 has to do with an incompetent villain and unclear powers. Go into the comments right now and please tell me, what is Captain Rambo's power? Because from her description, she said she can see light.
You can absorb light. I can see it.
She can see light. On Darben's end, she has a hammer. That hammer was destroyed in the Guardians of the Galaxy. That hammer only worked because it had the Power Stone. So when they're fighting, really, I don't know who can do what. I liked it back in the day when, like, in the X-Men, in the X-Men, powers were very easy to define. She's invisible, she's a mind reader, Wolverine has spikes. It was easy to define whose power and who does what. But now in this movie, The Marvels, you can barely tell what anyone can do. If someone asks me, what does Captain Marvel do? I'm like, she's like Superman, but without the weakness. She can do everything. That's what I always say. Her power is everything, And this just makes the fight scene very weird because I don't understand what the stakes are, because I don't know who can do what, really. Also, Darben has this bangle that absorbs Captain Marvel's powers. It absorbs her power and then... No, seriously, it absorbs her power and then nothing happens. I would have thought that maybe when Darben is able to absorb Captain Marvel's powers, that absorbing the power would make her like stronger, bigger, buffer or something. But no, she just absorbs the power and then that's that. That's that. It doesn't go anywhere. I would have assumed that it would maybe progress her power, make her power grow, but they fight, she absorbs Captain Marvel's powers, and then that's it. It doesn't help her grow in any way. And the last thing would have to be no clear fight resolution NPCs and no boss fights. This one is a bit bigger. What do I mean by no clear fight resolution? You see, when people fight, when heroes fight villains, three things happen. Either the villain knocks out the hero knocks out the villain, or surrender. Typically, the villain surrenders, something like that, right? So you see this very nicely in something like Captain America, Winter Soldier. Captain America lands on this ship. He ends up fighting smaller foes before he gets to fight one very big foe. This guy called, I think his name was Batroc or something like that. So he has to fight these small villains before he gets to the bigger villain. But you never see this in the Marvels movie. For example, when Captain Marvel fights these dudes in Kamala Khan's house, she just fights them, and they're just NPCs, in my opinion. They're just there to give you fodder for some dumb fight scene that you won't care about. It would have been better if she was fighting these smaller guys to end up fighting one really big guy. You get what I'm trying to say? That's why I'm using Captain America Winter Soldier, that he ended up fighting these smaller henchmen to end up fighting one really big dude. Sort of like a boss fight in a video game. You fight smaller dudes to fight one really big dude. But you never see this in the Marvels movie. Also, the Marvels, the fight scenes, I think only one had a clear resolution. One fight scene had a clear resolution where Darben fights Captain Rambeau and Captain Marvel, and then she wins. The other fight scenes, she fights and no one wins, no one dies, no one surrenders. For example, the final fight scene in the Marvels, when the heroes go up against Darben, they kind of pin her to the ground or something, and then she gets the upper hand. She gets the bangle from Miss Marvel, and then when she has both bangles, what happens? She explodes. So, yay, bangles, they defeated the villain. Like, the hero didn't beat the villain. It was the bangles that defeated the villain. It was so anticlimactic. It irritated me so much. The very first time that Captain Marvel meets up with Darben, the fight scene happens for like 3 seconds, and then she runs away. Literally. Retreating is not fighting. We talk about flight or fight response, not flight and fight, flight or flight. So running away is not a clear resolution to it. And I really hated the fact that Darben, she gets blasted by Captain Marvel, and then she absorbs her power. A bit of a scuffle ensues, that gimmicky switching around happens, and then Darben pisses off. And that's the fight. That's one of the fight scenes in the movie. It's very annoying, very badly written. There was a time when the MCU knew how to write fight scenes properly, but in this movie, the fight scenes come off as just fodder for your eyes for a while, a popcorn flick to make your brain go off, and then, just feed you for a while to entertain you, like sort of like a jester juggling things in front of you, and then bye-bye, we're off to the next scene. If you agree with my analysis, please make sure to smash like and subscribe. That is my reason as to why the fight scenes in the Marvels really, really suck. If you disagree with me, please feel free to comment below. If you've watched the movies, if you've watched the Marvels, please comment below. Tell me what your thoughts are, and then I'll see you in the next one.